I recorded this video already and the microphone was not connected, so the audio was not recorded, and I'm gonna have to do it again. Okay, but this is my 2025 reading wrap up, and I'm gonna be going over my story graph wrap up first, and then an overview of all the books that I've read. I like the story graph reading wrap ups more than any other tracker that I have. I have like 5 different trackers. This I feel like is the most detailed wrap up, and I love it so much. So I read 26 books across 7,449 pages. I had a goal to read 12 books. I surpassed that goal, thankfully. The first book that I read was Clockwork Princess. The last book was Fallen. This is my mood map of my year. As you can see, this month I didn't really read, but I tend to get really dark, and I kind of read semi-dark books throughout. Oh, also it says, you chase horizons and daring escapades, felt every heartbeat on the page, and wandered through tales tinged with shadow. A steady rhythm of stories kept the year moving along nicely. This is the books and pages read per month. I read 0 on January, February. On March, I read 4. On April, I read 1. May, June, and July, I read 0. On August, 0 again. On September, I read 1. On October, I read 4. On November, I read 11. And on December, I read 5. I surpassed my goal by 217%. The most genres I read was fantasy with 20 books, young adult with 16 books, short stories with 11 books, romance with 7 books, and spicy with 4 books. The longest book I read was City of Heavenly Fire. It is 688 pages. The shortest book was 40 pages. It is Pale Kings and Princes. It's also by Cassandra Clare, these 2 books. The average length of the books was 244 pages, and it took me about 56 days to finish each book. The least time spent was with Nothing But Shadows, which was 1 day, and it's also by Cassandra Clare. I read a lot of Cassandra Clare this year. The longest time I spent with a book was 707 days. And these Curses and Conspiracies. I don't typically tend to DNF books, so that's my explanation for almost taking me, 2, 3 years with this. The most authors I read was one Cassandra Clare with 13 books. Sarah Reese Brennan and Robin Weiserman are 2 of the ones that she co-wrote books with, so that's why they show up here. I was part of one read along, which encompasses 4% of my 2025 reading. My average rating was 4.4 stars. These are the list of my 5 reads: Fear Escape, City of Heavenly Fire, Welcome to Shadowhunter Academy, The Whitechapel Fiend, Pale Kings and Princes, Wither of Tongue, and Born to the Endless Night. These are my ratings for 2025: 7, 5 stars, 3, 4.75, 2, 4.5, 2, 4.25, 6, 4, 4, 2, 3.75, and 1, 3 stars. My highest average rating was September, although I only read 1 book, so of course, and it was a 5-star book. October was my favorite, my least. I guess it says wasn't your favorite month. My average rating was 394. On December, I read the most pages, which was 1,851. The book most shelved was Fourth Wing. This is a best-selling and really hype book, so of course, it has 658,000 users, and my rating was 4 stars. The least shelved is Mercy, it's no surprise, with 27 users, which was surprising. My highest rated, it is Clockwork Princess. It is 4.52 stars on Storygraph, but my rating was 4.25. I explored 4 new authors, which is Rebecca Yarros, Robin Weiserman, and Killian Patrick Burke. 23 of the books were part of a series. I revisited 9 books this year. I DNF'd 2 books, which Fourth Wing was one of them, although I read it, I finished it. So I don't know why it counts as a DNF, but okay. And 12 of my books were from my own bookshelf. These are all of the books that I read, and I'm gonna be going over them right now. So, Clockwork Princess, the first book that I read on the year. This one, it is the third book of the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare, and I kind of enjoyed it, although I feel there was a lot of filler. A lot of scenes I was reading that was like, didn't really add anything to the plot. I really feel like they were not important and we could have done without. I guess you could enjoy them if you're really into the characters, although I really was. And I still felt like it is too long. This book felt too long, which is surprising because the longest one was City of Heavenly Fire, and I had a blast reading this one. And it was kind of disappointing because this series, the Infernal Devices series, was my favorite series of Cassandra Clare. So I kind of expected to like it more, the conclusion, but the ending was cute. It is the highlight, of course, and also the love triangle between Will, Jem, and Tessa. It is great. It was well handled, and the conclusion is one of the ones that I really liked, especially at the time when I first read it. It was very original, but this reread, I don't know, it left me a bit disappointed. I was expecting more. I was expecting to like it a lot more. I was expecting more plot, and I felt they really just focused on the characters and their lives instead of actually fighting the villain and working with that. But I don't know, maybe it's just me. Then I read The Throne of Fire by Rick Riordan and The Serpent Shadow, which these two are part of the Kane Chronicles, which is the Rick Riordan series. And there's a first book. This is the second one. This is the third one. I read the first one, I think it was in 2024. And usually I don't tend to read back to back books anymore of a series because I don't want to burn myself out. But surprisingly, I had a really fun time reading these two books. It is about, oh, I forgot to explain what this is about. So, it is about a villain that wants to use like robotics, like, what is the name of that? There's a name for that, but I don't remember it. But he wants to use like robots to kind of defeat the Shadowhunters, and they have to work on a way to defeat the villain. But there's also a love triangle, and there's a little bit more romance. This is sort of a romantasy series. It has a lot of fantasy elements, but it focuses more on the romance. So maybe that's why I didn't like it that much. But I'm a sucker for romantasy, so I don't get I don't get it. But these two, it follows a pair of siblings that are trying to save the world from gods, Egyptian gods, to be precise. And I feel it is a good. I read this because I read Percy Jackson and it was one of my favorite series when I was a kid. I tried to read this one years ago, but I really couldn't get into the story. It was a lot different than Percy Jackson. So I was not into it and I DNF'd it. But I'm glad I gave it a chance again. I had a lot of fun. I feel it is a really good introduction to the Egyptian mythology. And I feel it is a good book for all ages. I kind of understand Egyptian mythology is incredibly confusing, in my opinion. So I kind of like that we get a little bit more of an easy version to understand, although I still feel it's very confusing, to be honest. Even they trying to explain it, I'm still confused about how everyone is related. It is a lot more confusing than Greek and Roman mythology. But like I said, oh, and this one, it is not exactly, they're not sons or daughters of gods. They are descendants of a line that can sort of host gods, which can then give them powers when they're hosting them, but it's not exactly like they're related to the gods. So that's the difference between Percy Jackson and this one, although there's a lot more elements. And there's also a love triangle, which surprised me because having read The Clockwork Princess before this one's, I really feel the love triangle was handled really well despite being a very middle grade book. I loved it. And the characters were not as annoying as I thought they would be. considering they were younger, and I had a lot of fun. I don't remember exactly what I rate them. Check. I'm gonna have to check, don't I? Okay, so for Throne and Fire, I rated it 4.5, and for The Serpent's Shadow, it was 4 stars. Then I read Sour Candy. This is a horror book, technically, but to me, it didn't really exactly felt like horror, if I'm being honest. I expected a lot more, and I don't typically tend to read horror, which is why maybe I'm not used to the genre, but okay. This is a book about a kid who is weird and kind of takes over a man's life, telling him that he's his father when he really isn't, and he has to eat a lot of sour candy, which is that's why the name. I tried to read this years ago. I DNF'd it. The book caught my eye when I was searching through my digital library, so I decided to read it again, and I expected it to be a lot more scary. It wasn't at all. I don't know why. Like, yeah, I didn't really have fun reading this one. I think I rated it 3.75. Yes. So it is okay, I guess, but it was not what I was expecting, knowing that it was a horror. So I don't know, maybe it's just me that I'm not used to the genre, but yeah, it was not my taste. Then I read The Brain Chronicles, which surprisingly, I rated this 4 stars. And surprisingly, I was a little bit disappointed. I thought I was gonna like it more, especially because Magnus is one of my favorite characters. But sadly, the book felt too long. I think it is because it was short stories revolving around Magnus, and I read them as a book instead of the short stories, which these ones I read the short stories because that's what I had, and I had a lot of fun reading them. This one, I wish I could have read them as short stories instead because I feel like I would have liked it a lot more. I just, yeah, I felt the chapters were too long, that there were a lot of scenes. Like, I kept getting bored halfway through the chapter. And there was one chapter in particular that I was super annoyed by because it happened and he forgot all about it. So I felt like there was really no reason why that chapter had to happen. And I don't know if it's gonna be important for the next series, but it annoyed me so much that that happened. I was like, are you kidding me? After all this, are you telling me this? Like, it is a dream. I hate when that happens in any media. So I was very annoyed when it happened here. But like I said, I rated it 4 stars. I did like the inclusion or like the mention of Raphael and Ragnar. Those two are are two of my favorite characters from the Shadowhunter um world. But yeah, I was very disappointed about how I didn't exactly enjoy the chapters as much as I thought I would. Then we have Fear Escape, which was amazing. I rated this one 5 stars. This one I read in September, and this was an amazing read. It follows a teenage girl that is being stalked, and she falls in love with, well, not falls in love, but she gets interested in this guy who's very mysterious, kind of dangerous, and I don't want to spoil it too much. But this one, it is like a cautionary tale, cautionary, cautionary. I I feel like I'm not spelling that, like saying that right. But also, it is like a very eye-opening as someone who reads a lot of dark romance because it touches on those themes and it kind of lets you to believe that it's a dark romance, but this is sort of a horror book. And the ending was heartbreaking but very realistic. And I had a blast within this one. It is sort of short. It is a lot longer than I expected, but it is short. And also, this is the first book of a trilogy, but it also has 4 books now. So there's other books that I do plan on reading. But yeah, this is overall my favorite book of the year. Then I read Separation. This is the first, no, This is actually the second book of a series. It is called the Kane Trilogy, although it has 4 books, so I don't exactly know why it's called that. And for this one, I was extremely disappointed. This book was annoying. It annoyed me so much. It has that trope of the will there one day. It is okay. It follows a woman that is trying to get out of a toxic relationship, sort of. They're not really together. She likes him, he likes her, but she doesn't really like the dynamic that they have. But he's changing, he's changing for her and he's trying to show her that he's changed. And she still doesn't trust him because of all the things that have happened. Like, imagine the trauma. There's a lot of things that happened. Honestly, I was annoyed throughout this whole book. That is not the will that one day. It is not my. I don't really like that trope that much. And like I've mentioned multiple times, that I'm an instant love kind of girl. And for this one, I just kept thinking, why are we reading about this? Why is this dragging? It is technically a short book, but I felt it dragged so much. And I just kept thinking, why are we reading about this? Why can't they talk? All they do is like hook up. And like, why don't they just talk and like get to the bottom of things and try to fix their relationship? Why is there so much back and forth? And the ending came out of nowhere. It was very confusing. I felt it was a little disjointed, like it didn't make sense how we got to that point. Like, there were steps, there were a few things that happened that sort of could have, contributed to that, but at the same time, I felt like I just don't know why I felt like it came out of nowhere. Like, it happened, and I was like, I really? Like, are we doing that? Like, what? So, yeah, overall, I didn't have fun with this one, which really sucks because the first book, it is one of my favorite books that I really like. It really left an impression. This one doesn't really make me want to read the rest of the series. And I really did want to read the rest of the series. So what am I gonna do now? Then I read City of Heavenly Fire. This is the last book of the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. I read this 5 stars because I had a lot of fun. And as opposed to this one, this is longer, but every scene felt like it added something to the plot. It didn't, like, no scene felt like filler. Every scene felt like it was important to the overall plot. And I really enjoyed that. I like I guess, where they were, like oh my God, the setting of the story, I guess it is. I really liked the ending. It was a little bit heartbreaking, but it was a good conclusion. I really loved watching, like reading again about the characters. Overall, it was a great book. I really enjoyed it. It was a good conclusion. And I was not expecting to have so many scenes about Julian and Emma. I didn't remember that. This is also a reread, of course. This is a reread, this is a reread, this is a reread, and this is a reread. These two are not, this is not, and this is not. But I feel like it is really good, the fact that they had so much Emma and Julian, because when I tried to read the other series, I really couldn't get invested because I was not into the characters, because I was already invested on these ones. And because I tried to read it so close after finishing this one, I felt that contributed to me not liking the new characters. But I really enjoyed seeing the glimpses that we got about Emma and Julian and seeing their dynamic and how, like, the Blackthorn kids and how they kind of got to the current state of the other series. And then I read Mark. This one, this is the worst book I read this year. Probably one of the worst books I've read in my life. This is an abomination. This is atrocious, and I don't want to be too mean because I know people are very passionate about books, and also books are very. I don't even know how to speak English anymore. I keep forgetting all the words that I'm gonna use. But I know Like people are very not invested. I forget it. Anyway, I don't want to be too mean about it because personal. Books are very personal. But this book, I hated it. Hated it. Hated it. This book was annoying. Oh my God. The writing was horrible. Like freaking horrible. It was so cringe. And I got someone that commented on my Fable when in one of my posts telling me that it's a 2000 book, so it is meant to be cringe because those time were cringe. But I have another book here that really aged well. This one didn't. Like it felt like I was reading a middle grade book when I read other middle grade books that are great. This one, oh my God, it was so stereotypical. Like, yeah, no, I didn't like it. This is about a girl who's turning into a vampire, and she has to go to a boarding school and cut off contact with all of her family because her family is kind of in a cult that are not really respecting her, and her friends are all horrible. Her boyfriend is horrible. We actually, oh my God, we actually have a scene where she reunites with her best friend and she realizes that she doesn't actually like her best friend. And I was so annoyed by that because I was like, are you kidding me? Are you that horrible of a person that you had a friendship for all these years with this woman and now you realize you don't actually like her? Like, why? How can you be so judgmental to your best friend? But anyway, and that's the thing. This girl is a goody two shoes that is judges everybody else that is not. She doesn't smoke, she doesn't drink, she doesn't have relationships, like spicy relationships with anyone, and she judges everybody that does. Which is crazy because she falls in love with a new guy after the second day. Like, yeah, the second day of arriving at school, she falls in love with him. And as I mentioned before, I'm an instant love kind of girly, but my God, it didn't make sense. And this book annoyed me so much. The writing, I hated it. I pushed through it because I wanted to know what the ending was going to be like. And I tried to read this one before a few years ago, and I understand now why I didn't push through. Yeah, no, I regret so much reading this book. I don't want to read the rest of the series, but I feel like I have to because I want to know if it gets better. But I do feel like it's not going to get better. Also, there's elements of boarding school, of cults. The boarding school doesn't really is that important like after the third book or something like that, which really sucks because that's one of the things that really interested me about the story. But whatever, they can do what they want. I'm struggling with this one. um yeah, no, this haunts my dreams. Then I read Curses and Conspiracies, which as you saw, it is the longest book that took me to read, almost 2 years. If I'm not mistaken, let me actually see if I do here. It says, yeah, almost 2 years to read this one because I started it on November of 2023. So, okay. This one I had a lot of fun. This is about, okay, so in this world, there's secret agents, and this takes place like in the 1800s. And there's secret agents that have to go to a finishing school because they're women, right? And that's what they do to become like ladies. But they're secret agents, and there's also werewolves and vampires that exist out in the open. And there's like steampunk elements, and she has to save like her friends, which are trying to be kidnapped by a gang or like some of the villains, right? But she has to also find out why they want to get kidnapped, and she also has to find a device that they're looking for as well before they find it. And I really enjoyed the fact that we get a little bit of more insight into the world and not the magic system because there's no magic, but how everything works, about more information about the vampires and the werewolves and the other guys because there's another there's a school of boys who are also becoming villains, which is so funny that the boys are meant to become villains and the girls are meant to become secret agents, which is like, okay. But yeah, I had a lot of fun, and despite the fact that this is meant to be a middle school book, like a middle grade book, it holds up really well. Then I read this one, which is one of the darkest books that I've read ever, and also this year. Like, wow. I don't, I cannot even recommend this book. I cannot. This book hasn't exactly been banned, but it has been pulled out of a lot of retailers because the themes that it deals with are so dark and so disturbing and so triggering. Okay, let me explain. So it has a lot of Alice in Wonderland elements, and that's one of the reasons why I read it, right? Years ago. I have the original version because I bought it when it was released in, I think it was 2017 or something. And it is about two kids who met when they're kids, right? And then they get separated and they reunite when they're adults. And they're being abused by people. And when they reunite as adults, they go to take revenge on all the people that hurt them, right? And the book doesn't shy away. It is very graphic in the scenes. And it was really uncomfortable to read. It was really triggering to read. It is like now that I'm older, it was really hard to get through. Really, really hard to get through. I understand why a younger me could stomach it, but yeah, older me just couldn't. I tried to DNF it, but then I was so close to finishing it that I pushed through because I wanted it to count towards my reading goal. But oh my god, I it was so hard, so hard. I even got nightmares thanks to this book. Like I see people saying like in Tome, really, which is another one of the trackers that I use, that they want to read the book, that they're crazy to read the book and they cannot find it anywhere because some retailers have it for about $100. And I don't understand why anybody would like to read this book. I didn't remember it being so dark. Like, I just, maybe I blacked out a few of them, because, like most of the book, because it is so triggering. But wow, wow, I just, yeah, no, it was a really hard read. So that's why. Then I decided to go a little bit lighter, and I read Welcome to the Shadowhunter Academy. This is the first of the short stories of the Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare. It follows Simon going to the Shadowhunter Academy to try to become a Shadowhunter after he gets reintroduced to the Shadowhunter world after the City of Heavenly Fire. And I really had a lot of fun in this one. It was a really good break, like a really good palette cleanser from this one. I think in this is the book where Isabel goes to the academy to try to DTR her relationship because she's having issues with Simon, because there's a struggle now that Simon is sort of a celebrity because everybody knows that he helped the Lightwoods and Clary and Jace to save the Shadowhunters, and he was a vampire and he get turned into a human again, and he doesn't remember any of that. We thought that after the City of Heavenly Fire he would remember, but no, he doesn't remember most of the things. He has some feelings, like some things that are familiar to him, but he doesn't remember anything about his time with Clary or with Isabel, and he just gets some scenes here and there, like some memories. And Isabel and him are not boyfriend and girlfriend anymore, although he knows they were together, but because he can't remember what happened between them, he doesn't feel comfortable being with her, and he keeps telling her that he's not the same person that she fell in love with. And yeah, it was a really good introduction to the Shadowhunter world. What? Oh, I read this 5 stars. Yeah, I really like it a lot. Also, let me see what I rated this. I rated this one 4.5, and I rated, oh god, close this one. Now I have to enter again. I rated this one, Curses and Conspiracies, 4 stars. Okay. Then I read The Lost Herondale, which I rated this one. I don't actually have a rating. This is about Katerina. So Katerina, this is the second book of the Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy, and Katerina tells Simon about how she adopted a baby that was a Herondale, and she raised him, and then she let him out into the world, and he doesn't know that he's a Shadowhunter. So there's actually a secret line of Herondales out in the world, and nobody knows except Katerina and Simon and maybe Magnus and Ragnar. But Ragnar is dead, so he doesn't actually know anymore. And she told him because she really likes him and she's trying to show him how he has power and whatever. And that, you know, I don't really remember what she told him. But that's just like the plot for this book. Then I read The Whitechapel Fiend, and this is a 5-star book. This actually follows, this is the third book of the series. This actually follows the Jack the Ripper and how Cassandra envisioned that actually happened. And it was really good. I enjoyed, okay, there was a few things that I enjoyed. One is the fact that it touches the Jack the Ripper mystery, which is one of my favorite mysteries, or one of the mysteries that I was really first got into when I was younger. And it sucked that we wouldn't actually get like to know what happened, why he did what he did, who he was, like nothing of that. It sucks. But this is her interpretation of what actually happened to him and who he was in the Shadowhunter world. And I had a lot of fun reading it. I had a lot of fun seeing Tessa and Will grown up, seeing their dynamic. Like, yeah, I loved it. Although I do have to say that the ending was a little bit anticlimactic. I was expecting more. I was expecting a fight, and there wasn't a fight. But I do like Cassandra. Like, it was sort of original in a way, and I do like how Cassandra tried to explain what the mystery actually was. Then I read Nothing But Shadows. I read this for 75. Okay, this is funny. So, this follows James, which is Will and Tessa's son, as he goes to the Shadowhunter Academy, and he realizes that he actually has warlock powers and that he can become like mist, like smoke. So, how he met his Parvati, which is Matthew, and I love Matthew. Everybody loves Matthew. And the reason why it's not a 5-star, despite me liking so much Matthew, is because I thought I was gonna like James more, and I hated the fact that he was so jealous that he treated not Magnus, my God, Matthew, so bad. Like he could have treated him so much, like so better. Could have treated him better, and he was so jealous that he kept like being an ass, and I was like so annoyed by that. That's why it's not a 5-star, because I didn't really like James. And I was very disappointed because I thought I was gonna like James, him being a son of Will. But yeah, then we read not we, me. I read The Evil We Love, and this, okay, what did I rate this one? Because I didn't rate it, oh yeah, 4.25. So this follows Robert Lightwood. He's telling the class, because in the academy they sometimes get guest lectures by Shadowhunters or like by warlocks or whatever, explaining the history and stuff. And in this one, Robert Lightwood, which is Isabel and Alex's father, is explaining to the class about the circle. And he is sort of telling the story of how he and his Parvatis fell out of connection because his Parvati came out to him about the fact that he was gay, and Robert shunned him. And I expected to read more about the circle, more than Robert struggles with his barbitide. I was not really interested in that. I guess it is fine. Like, don't get me wrong, it is okay. But I just expected to read more about the circle and about Valentine's dynamic and how he really was. I think the only glimpse that we got was in the werewolf scene, which is a little bit gory. And you can really see how manipulative Valentine is and how he is willing to go to extreme lengths to get what he wants, and because of his hatred towards the downworlders, and how Robert is very just eager to be accepted and to follow Valentine, that he goes along with things. But I just, like, I understand and it is fine the fact that we got that insight and the backstory of how him and his Parvati felt, um, got that issue and got that problem. I guess it is really interesting to people who are, who wanted to know that, but I personally didn't. I was not interested in that. I just didn't care. I did like the mention of Isabel and how I suspected what she was doing, but and I'm glad to be proven right. And yeah, the Simon and Easy bits were cute. Then I read Pale Kings and Princes. This follows Helen. Helen, right? Yes. Follows Helen. What do I rate this? Which is one of the Blackthorn kids. Yeah, 5 stars. And she's telling the class the story of how her father got her and her brother. So the storyline is apparently that he was kidnapped by a fairy princess, him and his brother, and they stayed in the fairy realm for 7 years. And they were tortured. He was spelled to fall in love with the princess, and then he got her pregnant, and that's why the twins were born. And then he realized that he was spelled. He got his brother free, who had been tortured like for those 7 years, and they escaped. That's the story that the Shadowhunters know, and that's the story that she tells the class. But at the end, we get the real version of the story and what actually happened. And that ending, I really, really like. I really enjoyed. Because it shows how the Shadowhunters are not. Like, we know that the Shadowhunters are not exactly perfect, but yeah, I just really like the ending. I don't even know how to explain it. It's not like it shows that the Shadowhunters are not perfect. It's more that it shows that there's like secrets that are lost because of the Shadowhunters having that perception already and not being able to see that there can be other sides, or like there can be more to a story. Like, not everything is black and white, and not everything like that they think is bad is actually bad, but they just have this assumption already. They just have this idea already, and they just look for things to corroborate that. And I really dislike the treatment of Helen. It made me really sad. Helen and Aline are one of my favorite couples, and I wish we got more to see more of them, but I know we're probably going to see more of them in the next series. Then I read Bitter of Tongue, and I like this one a lot too. This is a 5-star book as well. This follows Helen's brother, Mark, and on this book, the one of the groups of the Shadowhunters in the Shadowhunter Academy have a task, a mission, to find a fairy who's actually selling like fruits and giving fruits to the humans. And they had to hunt him down. And accidentally, Simon falls into the fairy realm. And he meets Mark. And he has to break the news to Mark the fact that the Clave does not want to look for him, despite the fact that Mark is the reason why they save Alicante. Mark was the one who told them, the Clave, despite the fact that he could be killed or whatever, that the fairies were not on their side. He was the one He was the reason why the Clave was able to defend themselves against the fairies. And despite all of that, they still didn't want to look for him because they felt he was less than. Like, he's in a predicament where the fairies don't like him because they see him as a shadow hunter, and the shadow hunters don't like him because they see him as a fairy and just. It is so sad because he doesn't fit in any side. And it hurt my heart so much. The fact that Simon had to squash his hopes. And I just hope he doesn't turn into a villain. I'm dreading that if it does happen because after Simon breaks the news to him, he kind of changes a little bit. He kind of realizes that the clave is not good and not as perfect as he thought they were. And it's just like this kind of realization and just it kind of opened his eyes. And is he still saves Simon despite all of that. But we also see that he's not having a good time in the fairy realm and he's not being treated good because the fairies, as I said, see him as a shadow hunter and they just don't trust him. But yeah, this was a really sad book. I really love seeing Mark and I really love getting that inside of him. And I know we're gonna see more of him in the other series, but again, I just hope he doesn't turn into a villain because I just want him to go down that path. I want him to be okay. Like I hope his resolution it is a good one. Then I read the Fairy Trial, and this one I think I rated 4 stars. Yes, I rated 4 stars. This one I didn't really enjoy it. Like it was okay, but it was a bit boring. This one follows Simon and Clary. They're having like a trial, basically. They're under a substance and they're having dreams and whatever, and they have to solve something to really see if they're compatible to become privatized. And yeah, I was just not really that interested. I was a bit confused, to be honest. It is a dream that is acts like a dream where things happen, like things are happening and then other things are happening without like not making any sense of how we got there, but whatever. I just yeah, I was bored. That's what it is. I was not really interested in this one. But then I read Born to Endless Night and this is a 5-star read because I enjoyed this one so much. I really had fun. This one follows Magnus and Alec and how they got their baby. And one of the funniest scenes is when Robert is talking to Magnus and he's telling him, you can tell me if you make the baby. Because he notices that the baby is blue and Alec's eyes are blue and Magnus, like when he does magics and whatever, his sparkles are sometimes blue. And he's telling him that he can tell him because he thinks Magnus created the baby. And I just don't know why I found that so funny. Plus, I love seeing all the family's interactions with the baby. The baby is so cute. And I love seeing all the family's interactions with him, like how they treated him, how everybody wanted to hold him, how crazy everyone was. I love seeing that Magnus is finally being accepted into the family. I love seeing all the family again together and how Magnus was not really into the baby, but Alex was like from the get go, he was thinking that the baby was gonna be theirs. And I had a lot of fun. I had a blast reading this one. This one was one of the funniest and the most fun to read. And then I read Angels Twice Descending. This one, I think I gave it 4 stars because this one was mid. I expected a lot more, especially because in this one is the resolution. And this one, Simon is becoming a shadow hunter finally. He's drinking from the infernal cup, or like I don't think it's the infernal cup. The mortal cup. He's drinking. Oh my god, he's drinking from the mortal cup and he's becoming a shadow hunter and there's a death that I didn't expect, but I should have seen coming because Cassandra likes to kill every fucking character that I like. So I should have known. But okay. I like yeah, I let my guard down. I suspected it, but I still let my guard down and I was like, okay, we're safe. We were not safe. We were not. But it's okay. This one I expected a lot more. I didn't like, yeah, despite like apart from that death, I didn't really enjoy it. Like it was sort of disappointing resolution, but I'm glad that I read it and I still had a lot of fun reading all the separate chapters. Like that's what I'm saying, that I should have read this one as separate chapters instead of like the whole book, because I had a lot more fun reading these ones as separate chapters. But it sucks that this is the book that I had. And then I read The Housemaid. Okay, this one was mid. I actually did a video about it. And okay, I had a lot of fun reading this one. I read it really fast. I think I read it in a day or two. And initially, I was okay, this is a great book, right? But then I kept thinking more about it. And I came to the realization that this was just an okay book. It is a little bit overhyped. I see a lot of people saying like, "Oh, this book is amazing." Like I didn't see the twist coming. Like it was so surprising, and I was like, "How can you not?" I don't even read thrillers, and I saw everything like yeah, I suspected everything, and I was right. And I like to be right, which is the reason why I rated it so high. I think I rated this 475 or something. Yeah, 475, because I like to be proven right. But still, like how I just it's so surprising to me. Like people read thrillers and they're saying they didn't expect it to happen. How can you not? It was literally spelled out. Like like there's a lot of foreshadowing. And like the last twist was not surprising at all, because I knew from the get-go, from the first moment that that character appeared, I knew, oh, that's the one who started it. They're the reason. Like, oh, also, I forgot to say. So, this follows a woman who gets hired to be a housemaid for a wealthy family, and weird stuff start happening. Like, the woman who hires her is crazy. She gets put into the attic, which is a very questionable room because the window is glued shut. The door has a lock on the outside, not on the inside. The husband is actually really nice, and she starts to fall in love with him. And yeah, I I just I don't understand why people think this book is so surprising. It's just an average thriller book. It is fun. It's just not the best book. And as someone like I like to be proven right. I was okay with the book because I knew everything was gonna happen, and it happened. Like I think the only plot twist that I thought like yeah, no, I suspected every plot twist except when the villain was revealed, right? I didn't expect that it was gonna be. I knew he was the villain. Oh, shit, I just spoiled it. I knew they were the villain, but I didn't know exactly in what way they were like handling things, or like they were doing the things, like how they acted when they were a villain. But I knew they were a villain. I could see that from like, oh my god. It is an okay book. I just think it's a little bit overhyped. But I had fun. And I'm glad I finally read a Frida McFadden book so I can see why everybody raves about them. But I've also heard from a lot of people that every Frida McFadden book is very similar. They follow like the same tropes. So I'm not really interested in reading any more of her books. And I've also heard this complaint, which is really true, that Frida doesn't actually let you guess anything. It is very straightforward. She writes very straightforward books. She tells a lot instead of showing. So, and I understand that a lot. Then I read Ultraviolence by Natalie Bennett, and how to explain this one? So this is about a woman who meets a man and they are instantly attracted and they go out together, technically in love, I guess you could say, and they unalive a lot of people. I didn't really enjoy this book. The writing was a little bit cringe. There was a lot of plot holes. There was a lot of things, like plot lines that were left unfinished, that were not really explained. And that is the issue that I have with Natalie Bennett. I made a video about it, but it's like, girl, just explain the plot. Like, she's she's not a person that cares about the plot. She cares about the spice in a way. Because how are you gonna like how are you gonna tell something and not really explain it? And then like you have just to guess? Like you have to make up your own story? Like you're not gonna like no, I have an issue with that. I don't like that at all. And I wish she would stop. And she does it constantly. Because I read another like this one, right? I read this one because I was searching for this one and I got confused. And I read this one first, but this is the book that I actually wanted to read. And one of the first, surprising that this book was released first. And I feel the writing is a lot better than this one. That's one of the things. Second is the freaking plot lines that are left unfinished. The things that are not explained. Like just why do I have to use my imagination to create the conclusion of that plot line? Or like the explanation of that plot line? Why do I have to do it? Why can't she just tell me? Like, did she is she just going for the vibes? That's what she's doing. Like, girl, like explain things for the love of God. When I finish a book, I want to finish a book understanding everything that happened. I don't want to have to make up their own story. But I feel like she has an idea and she just writes the things that are interesting to her and the rest is like, oh, whatever. And like, no, to me it's not whatever. I want an explanation. And I have an issue with that. I do. It really bothers me. In this one, it bothered me more than this one. This one, it is very similar. In this one, it is a small town, and she meets this guy that she's not really interested in him, but her family keeps pushing. So she eventually relents and she goes on a date with him, and then they fall in love after multiple days. And then disturbing things start happening because the man is crazy. And when I say crazy, it's like I'm pretty sure it's clinically crazy. Like the man is mentally not okay. And the ending was fantastic. The first time that I read it, I disliked the ending a lot. But this time I was a lot more prepared, and that ending I was waiting. I was so ready for it. So ready. Oh, also, this one had a freaking cliffhanger that it was sort of interesting, and I kind of want to know more about it because again, shit was not explained. So I kind of want to know like what is going to happen. And maybe hopefully in the second book they explain things more. But I just have the sense. I kind of had the thought that it's not going to be explained because Natalie Bennett doesn't explain shit, does she? Oh, and also in this one, The Housemaid. I know there's other books, and I was thinking of reading them, but like I said, I heard from a lot of people that Natalie Bennett's, like, not Natalie Bennett's, Peter McFadden's book are pretty much following the same formula and the same tropes, so I'm not really interested in it anymore. And also, I really don't see the need to have sequels for these books. I feel this book could have been a standalone, and I don't really understand why keep dragging the story. Like, what else is gonna happen? It's gonna be a pretty similar plot and a recycled plot, just with the same heroine, and I just don't know if I'm into that. But back to this one. So, yeah, the ending was amazing. Chef's kiss, 5 out of 5. I don't think I gave this book a 5 out of 5. What did I give it? Oh, I didn't make a review. Did I make a review for this one? It made a review. God. I don't think I made reviews for any of these ones. Oh, for this one I did. See if oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, yeah, I was ready for the ending. I knew what was coming and I was so ready for it. And I was like, yeah, I like it a lot. There was no other way that this book could have ended. And I know there's a second book and I was thinking of reading it, but I couldn't find it anywhere for some reason. Like it was pulled out. It says on Goodreads that it was unpublished. And I kind of understand why, because nobody really liked it. Everybody was like, because in the second book, I just don't want to spoil it because then I will be spoiling the ending for this one. But something happens in the second book that people are not into it, and I understand why. But yeah, the ending really, really makes this book so good. It's probably gonna be heartbreaking for a lot of people, but for me, the first time it was. But the second time, oh, it was amazing. I think because I was expecting it, but also because I really could not see this story to end any other way. Now that I'm older, a lot of my perspective has changed. So yeah, okay, then I read Fourth Wing and I gave this 4 stars. Okay, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed this one, right? But I don't understand why people kept saying this is a fantasy. This is a romantasy. The plot focuses on the romance with just a little bit of world building and just a little bit of plot, because of course you have to give plot to a romantasy or else it doesn't make sense. But this is a romantasy. Also, I was not expecting the spice. It took me by surprise. It was okay. Like it was a good scene, but I was just not expecting it. I didn't know that was in there. Because again, everybody keeps saying this is a fantasy. And for the love of God, it is not a fantasy. It is a romantasy. And I wish people would freaking disclose that. But they keep trying to like promote this as a fantasy when it's not. But the romance aspect, I was really into it. I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I was gonna enjoy it as much because enemies to lovers is not really a trope that I typically enjoy. But okay. Also, I tried to beat this on January of this year, and I DNF'd it. And because I think I had a lot of high expectations. And the start is a little hard to get through. It's a little bit cringy. Once you guess past that, like 5 or maybe like 10% mark, you really start to get into the story. And by a point, I was so addicted that I was like, I want to know what's gonna happen. And I didn't want to put the book down. And I kept thinking about it when I was not with the book. So it's good on that front. But it was just okay. Like, it is not, I, like, I had to lower my expectations in order to enjoy the book because everybody keeps saying, like, oh, it's such an amazing book. It puts me into fantasy. Like, it really put me into the fantasy. It is not a freaking fantasy. I was expecting a fantasy. It is not. There's dragons and there's like world building a little bit, but it is like, yeah. But I still had fun and I'm glad I read it. I finally gave it a chance so I know what everybody's talking about, but I just think it's a little bit overhyped. Not gonna lie. Also, I didn't expect to like him that much, like Satan. I didn't expect to be into him that much. Or the dragons. I kept seeing people like saying like, "Oh, I love dragons now." And I didn't understand. Now I do understand. I kind of like the dragons too. I don't want a dragon, but I kind of like them. They feel like cats. It reminds me of cats. Like I feel that's how my cat would talk if they could. Also, if they love me, but they don't seem to love me. Now, moving on to Fallen, which is the last book, finally, that I read on this year. And here's the thing why I don't understand. This book was published in 2009. And this book was published in 2007. And I know a lot can happen in 2 years, but like, they were published like 2 years, like 2 years apart. And this book aged fantastic. Wonderful. 5 stars. I did not give it 5 stars. I gave it 4.75. But it was an amazing book. And I would have given it 5 stars if I hadn't taken a break between reading. Like, compared to this one, this is an abomination. This is atrocious. I'm sorry. I don't want to be that mean. But it is really bad for me. It is really not my taste. But this one, I really enjoyed it. I had fun. I guess I'm a mood reader. Because I started reading this one because of the Dracula movie that I can't freaking watch because it is released in America in February of 2026. Despite the fact that France has it already. I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous about it. I told my partner that we actually have to see it because yeah, I told him, we're just gonna go. You have to go. We're going. And I'm forcing him to go when it is released here. But that's the reason why I started reading this book because I know, like, I needed that angst and that love across times and everything. And I knew this book had a similar storyline, but I didn't expect to like it that much. Like, I didn't expect to be as good as it is. Like, I expected it to be cringy, and it is sort of not cringy at all. Like, it is written fantastically well. And it's so funny because when I was reading, one of the things that showed up is that the the writers from this one made a, you know how the stack lines that they do when they read it and they said like it was amazing and whatever. And I was like, huh, like the foreshadowing. This book, it is amazing. This, not so much. And I don't want to compare, right? Because whatever. But it makes me really wonder. I read this like more than a decade ago. But it makes me really wonder because it aged amazingly well. How many of the other books I would enjoy from when I was younger? Because this one, I really had a lot of fun. Maybe it's the nostalgia talking, but I really enjoyed it. I didn't feel like it was cringy at all. Oh, I should explain. So this is about a woman, not about a woman, about a girl who falls in love with a guy instantly. Instant love. Yeah, I love that trope. But there's an issue. He doesn't seem to like her. And something bad could happen if they're together. Are you getting the hint? Are you getting it? Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I had a blast. This was the last book that I read, and I I finished the year with a bang. I kind of fell into a reading slump after it because I tried to read the short story and I really couldn't get into it. And I don't really want to read the second book yet, but I really love the romance. I wish I could have I would have wanted more romance than we got, but I understand like for the plot that they couldn't be together like right at the start. They eventually got together, of course. How That's how it is in romance fantasy books, but it just got me thinking. That era of the 2000s, those books, like there's another one I think is Beautiful Creatures. I'm actually thinking of reading again to see if it's actually good. Because all of those books that become popular around that time, I feel like they were really good books. Like I'm dying to see if they still hold up as good as this one. Yeah, I think that is it. Finally, for my 2025 reading wrap up. And yeah, I've been talking for such a long time, so bye. Thank you for watching.